On Tuesday, the United States will celebrate independence from England, from Great Britain. John Adams imagined that July 2nd would be a day of independence and the day of celebration. How did he get it so wrong? Because it was July 2nd and not July 4th when the Declaration of Independence was originally adopted. And John Adams actually penned a letter to his wife, Abigail, which I have read in years past. I'm not going to read it this year, but I've read it in years past, where he said that July 2nd would be a day of great pomp and circumstances and celebration and a day of prayer and thanksgiving for this new nation. But as things work in Washington, so they worked in Philadelphia, July 2nd, 1776, and it took the new Congress of this 13 colonies 2 days to finally work out the final language of the Declaration of Independence, give it its final adoption, all which was done in secret. And then on July 4th, it was made public. Those who cannot remember the past are doomed to repeat it. So I think it's important on days like this that we look at our past and realize the mistakes that we made so that we don't make them again, but also to see the foundation for which we are standing so that we can continue to honor those who have gone before us and have paid the ultimate sacrifice with their lives, some with their sacred honors and some with their fortunes. And I think that remembering the past so that we don't repeat the things that went wrong, but we understand our foundation, is true for us spiritually too. I haven't looked lately, but I would imagine that it's probably not much different now than it was 10 years ago. Well, I say that knowing how things have changed even in the last 10 years, so the numbers may even be less. And the small portion of people who claim to be Christians who actually spend time reading their Bible to understand what God has said to them and for them. Why is this important? Because not having a relationship and fellowship with God is repeating the same mistakes that Israel repeated over and over and over again. Israel was notorious for their great worship of God. You know, in Joshua's time, he says, never stop speaking God's word. Meditate on it day and night. And yet, just a few generations later, they were worshiping on mountains and high places of false gods, taken into captivity. And the story repeats itself and repeats itself and repeats itself. As the church here in the United States of America, it's our responsibility, it's our stewardship responsibility to know what God's Word says and to pass it on from generation to generation and what it means for this country. Because if we don't do it, we are bound to repeat the same political errors that we have seen in the past. We see a nation of young people who are growing up now that think socialism is a good thing. And yet we saw what happened with socialism in Germany in 1929. By 1939, it was no longer socialism, it was a Nazi party. And the start of World War I and the eradication of an entire people. The devil is very good at disguising the past. The reason is that he wants us to repeat it. He wants us to fail. He wants us to fall apart at the seams. And the only way it'll happen is if we allow it. So it's important that as we celebrate our Independence Day and July 4th, we understand where we came from.